right, 5:40. We'll take up to 6, about 20 to play with. Got my man Tyler behind the glass. Posting all our YouTube clips and segments on Rich Q on Q. So Johnny on the spot there. So Josh is probably driving as we speak to Indiana, which means we don't have to listen to him wax poetic about his lousy getting ready to choke New York Mets. But can we talk about your Phillies for a moment?
I don't want to talk about them.
I mean, that's what's going on with the Philadelphia Phillies? How do you explain this? You go against an Arizona team that's lost, 80 games?
Yeah. I didn't even watch a game last night. I saw on Twitter, or not on Twitter, on an app that he just only scored 1 run or 2 runs, I believe.
Yep.
And it was the Harper home run in first inning or second. And then I think Brad Miller scored somewhere in the 9th inning. Like you said earlier in the show, you're playing against bottom 3 team in higher MLB. You should be able to hit. And it just seemed like out of nowhere, you go from the series before the Mets, the Mets series, hitting season. It was a Charlie Manuel hitting season clinic, and the Dodgers come to town, and
that's it.
Nothing.
Yeah, no, it's a good point you bring up. They won that 8 in a row, and then they've struggled. And it's not like their schedule gets any easier. I mean, it's favorable to some extent, but I mentioned, too, that the Atlanta Braves also have a favorable schedule, and I think it's going to be a war of attrition. That's why we joked a couple weeks ago that the Phillies were going to overtake the Mets, but then I turned around and I joked again last week that the Braves were going to take the Phillies.
I mean, you did call it weeks ago, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Braves did take it. They have an overall better team than the Phillies, and both of the Mets, they have better pitching, and they do
much
have better
offense.
hitting.
Yes. Yeah. And, and it's funny, too, because Josh, when we were talking about that, he was almost he almost basically said, well, the Mets offense is kind of on par with the Atlanta Braves. It's not even close, man. The Atlanta Braves run differential is plus 84, okay? Plus 84. The Phillies, the Mets, the Nats, and the Marlins are all in the minus. The Phillies are minus 19. The Mets are minus 28. And I think that the injuries to DeGrom just took the life out of that. Yeah. Just sucked the life out of that team. Nationals minus 51, and then Miami minus 21. I mean, look, and right now the probability of the Phillies making a playoff sits at 34%. So
I am surprised it's even that high.
Well,
I would expect low.
Because they're only 2.5 back of Atlanta, so you have to you got to gauge it.
I still don't even see them though. I still could see the Mets finishing with a better record than the Phillies, and the Phillies dropping to 3rd place.
I can see that, too. I can see that. So absolutely.
What are the Mets' percentage right now?
The Mets right now, as we speak, and they've dropped, 5 in a row, and they're losing 1-0 right now to San Francisco. The Mets sit at 10%.
Wow.
But see, think about this. The Mets are 4.5 back, 2 back of the Phillies. So the Phillies are 2.5 back of Atlanta. Atlanta's playoff probability, they won 8 out of 10, 5 straight. We talked about their offense, 62%. So right now they're the front runner. Yeah. But then you can see that 2-game swing between the Phillies and the Mets is another 20-something odd percent either way. So the Phillies sit at 34, the Mets sit at 10. Yeah, I just think this is another season where the Phillies ultimately, they have to really go out and get another bat in the offseason. They have to go out and get another pitcher. And
with what money though?
Yeah, that's
and with what prospects can you even trade for?
That's the issue. They have not replenished their farm system for years, and they have
almost the 90s, it seems.
Well,
when we built that 08
well, yeah, the 08
we have
team,
not had a farm system that has even been doing anything like that, and we've had guys come up, but they don't do anything.
Yeah.
You had Dominic Brown, you had guys who you expected to be those guys like Franco. Alfaro.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I mean, the kid Baum, everyone was talking about him, but Baum. He's a liability. He's a liability. Alex Baum. He's a liability in the infield. McCutcheon's showing his age. I'll tell you.
Had a horrible season.
Yeah, but I'll also tell you who's very frustrating is Hoskins.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. He is one of the most. He is a player on that
Strikes
team.
out way too. I get it. He's going to hit your 24, 25 home runs, but he's already struck out over 100 times this year.
Yeah. And I think the biggest question with this team is that no Philadelphia fan wants to admit was the Bryce Harper signing even worth it at this point? Because right now we are in some of his prime years, and if we're not even coming close to a playoff run as we expected this team to be, was it worth that signing? Was it worth, the 13 years?
Which you're never going to play the life of that contract. You know, years ago when the Yankees signed A-Rod to that contract, you knew he wasn't going to play the life of that contract. Right now, if you're the Phillies, you have to just figure out a way to just take care of business against, and I would deem it a light schedule. If you can't do that, then I'm sorry. You don't deserve to make the playoffs. You don't. No. And you talked about it. They had a 9-game homestand, right? They swept the Mets. They dropped 4 of 6 against the Dodgers and the Reds. So I'm building a nice winning streak against struggling teams, but then when I step up in competition...
But that should have been like a little momentum.
You would think.
Momentum for them to be like... Because when I was watching that Mets series, watching that reminded me of that run of the Phillies back in the day.
Yeah.
And it felt like the old Philadelphia Phillies baseball.
Sure.
Life is back in Citizens Bank Park.
Right.
And then just Dodgers come to town and...
You got teased.
Nothing.
You got the life sucked right out of you. That's it. Rip the heart out. They opened the series against Arizona. Worst team in baseball, right? Yep. Worst record in baseball. So this is who they have the rest of the way. Ready? And by the way, they're 22-17 against 5 National League teams: the Marlins, the Nationals, the Cubs, the Pirates, and Rockies. What do all those teams have in common? They all have losing records.
Yeah.
And the Mets have the 6th toughest remaining schedule. Atlanta's a little more challenging than that. So you got to take care of business. I know we don't get too caught up in preseason, but what did you make of Jalen Hurts the other night? Flacco looked good, but you knew what you're getting with Flacco.
I mean, Hurts learning under a new head coach with Sirianni. Obviously, there's going to be some learning adjustments, but the biggest thing I liked from what I've seen, it wasn't even during the game. Part of it was during the game, but it seems like the team is rallying behind Hurts.
Yeah, I get that sense too.
It seems like they want him to succeed.
Yeah,
and I like seeing that out of the team altogether.
Well, that's good for morale.
Yes, but I feel like that can bring his confidence up and may show on the field.
I don't think he lacks confidence, though, man. I don't. I don't see a player out there that is gun shy. I mean, all the talk about the Eagles potentially trading him or trying to make a move for Deshaun Watson and all the questions that were fired off at this kid, you know, he didn't deflect. He just answered them honestly, right? He was extremely transparent. I want the kid to succeed, but I have to go back to what John McMullen has said. I don't believe the Eagles feel as though he is the long-term answer, long-term solution.
I hope he proves them wrong. I want to see him succeed, and us finally, after years, get our franchise quarterback and just shut that hell up.
Yeah, but you thought you had one in Carson Wentz.
After that injury, it was over for him. Once Nick Foles won that Super Bowl, it was not Carson Wentz's team anymore.
Now that I can't argue. No, that I agree 100%. I said it at the time.
You put
that was
a statue of Nick Foles and Doug Peterson up calling Philly as soon as you walk into the ring.
Yeah. But it didn't help.
He's walking into work every day looking at that.
But what hurt him again is he got hurt the following season, and they won a playoff game.
Yeah.
And then they ultimately lost to the Saints.
It also, though, Wentz's injury just reminded me of, like, Derek Carr's injury, where they have their MVP seasons and they come back and it's just a little downhill.
That's a good analogy.
But
yeah.
The difference I see in the two of them is it's Philadelphia. And the Philadelphia fans are going to come down the road if you're not doing anything. I know, not Vegas at the time, but Oakland fans are a very diehard fan base.
Yeah.
I still don't see Philly being a much crazier fan base. And
I think a lot of it also...
their players more accountable.
Yeah.
And Wentz just didn't have the mindset to play in Philadelphia.
No, right. But remember another thing, though. He gets hurt the Seattle game.
Yeah.
So
and Josh McCown has
exactly, who played on what, a torn hamstring basically at 40-something years of age. So I was talking a little bit about the NFC, the West, with Garoppolo, right, under pressure going into the season. Carson Wentz, if or when he's out there for the Colts, that's a quarterback that I think is going to be under pressure, because I think what's going to happen is, let's just say he was healthy and he played extremely well, and Indianapolis made it to the playoffs, and all of a sudden people are going to be like, oh, did we give up? It's only human.
Yeah.
Did we give up on him?
You can talk about the same thing with San Diego giving up on Drew Brees, and Saints landed a Hall of Fame quarterback.
That's right.
It's a risk that us Eagles the Eagles had to take, and he pans out. Just also can show he didn't work under the system we were running. And he works better with Frank Reich.
The one difference, too, at the time, and it's funny you mentioned Drew Brees, because at that time, Nick Saban was the coach of Miami.
Yeah.
And they didn't pass Brees' physical, and they turned around and they signed Dante Culpepper, and then, as you mentioned, Brees goes on to the Saints and has a Hall of Fame career. Listen, I don't believe the Eagles are going to be a horrible team this year. I don't.
We're going to surprise people. I don't think we're going to make the playoffs. I don't think we're finishing dead last in our division. I think it's going to be between us and your Giants.
No, get out. Why? No, absolutely not.
Your O-line is still non-existent. Daniel Jones still has to prove himself.
I'll give you that.
And if Saquon is not 100%...
Well, there's a lot of ifs in there. The Giants have to, and I'll go on the record saying this.
All three of those things have to go wrong for
yes and no,
last.
But the Giants have to. The Giants cannot lose week 1 to Denver. If Daniel Jones goes out...
Is it home or away?
That's home. And then they go on the road against Washington. But if Daniel Jones has a 10 of 19 for $136 and 2 picks and a fumble, I'm telling you, I will come on the next day and I will just roast this franchise.
I still want to even stand that draft pick by you guys.
Well, I think they realize...
You drafted him with your second pick in that draft.
Well, but the argument could also have been made they thought they shouldn't have drafted Saquon Barkley that high.
He should have been drafted that high.
Because he's a running back.
Reggie Bush
guy.
He was compared to Reggie Bush.
And Reggie Bush dealt with some injuries in his career too. Very talented. The Giants, they wasted Eli's last several years because they never fixed the O-line, and they had to start figuring out what the heck they were going to do. Now, again, I'll go on record and I'll say this. If they would have had the number 1 draft pick, okay?
In what draft? In the last draft?
Yeah. Oh. I would have jumped at Lawrence.
I don't see why you wouldn't. I mean, I've had my hot takes about Lawrence, but he's considered once-in-a-generation talent.
Yeah, I think
so why not take the risk at getting that instead of sticking with Daniel Jones and having the hope to him to succeed instead of having almost a surefire guy succeed?
So Daniel Jones was the 6th pick. I'm looking right now. The next quarterback taken, and everyone said you should have drafted Haskins. He turned out to be a bust.
Mm-hmm.
There were no other quarterbacks on the board. Murray went number 1.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're almost you're kind of stuck between, it was Murray, Boza, Williams. Oakland drafted a DE. I don't even...
Clyde or...
Yeah, you're right. Is he still in the league?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not too bad.
All right. White, Jones, Allen, Josh Allen, the linebacker. Yeah. So, yeah, look, this is it for Daniel Jones, man. I've said this. This is it. Daniel Jones's best moment as a pro was his first game ever against Tampa Bay on the road. It was one of the great. It really was. It was one of the great games I've ever seen in a debut. They were behind that game. He had 336 yards. He threw for a couple touchdowns, ran for a couple touchdowns. I mean, that was that was a fun game to watch. You know, I hated the fact that Eli was benched. I get it. Daniel Jones that day was just fantastic. That was his high water mark. So, how many games are the Eagles going to win this season?
17-game schedule.
Yeah, I'll put you on the spot. Or you want to wait? You want to wait another week or two? You want to think about it?
I can
let it
see
marinate.
Us at a 5 or 6.
That's not a good season then.
I'm not saying we're going to be insane. Maybe we just are hanging in a couple of games. Like I can see us hanging in the games with your Giants.
Oh, there it was
I
again.
can see
my
Washington.
Giants.
We can stick around with.
All right, we'll see.
Crazy.
How about the Dallas Cowboys?
Probably gonna split with them. Go 1-1. They beat us at the link. We beat them at AT&T.
Spoken like a true fan. All right, now we'll do it again next week.
Yep.
All right, so T's going to be back with us next week. Outstanding stuff from him. He gets all these segments up on the YouTube channel as well, so we appreciate that. We got to start wrapping it up on a Wednesday. Busy show tomorrow. We will go boxing heavy in the 5 o'clock hour. Johnny Wilds on Pack and Ugas. Damon Nicholson. Steve Gardner will join us from USA Today. We'll talk some baseball with him. You know, I'm looking at these updated MVP Cy Young odds, and I'll tell you, folks, it's all about grabbing some of those futures prior to the season. And we'll start to look into some of these win totals as well. Because some teams they're already going to hit, which is great. But again, depending upon where you hang your hat, you're not going to be able to cash the ticket just yet. And I did promise you guys about the AC numbers. I want to get into that tomorrow because we're a little tight on time today. We'll see if we can track down Rothstein as well. Let me get you caught up to speed with some baseball before we get out of here. End of 7th in Colorado. Rockies up on San Diego 7-5. Right now, 7th inning. It looks like bottom of the 7th. Giants up on the Mets 1-0. And I am curious to see one thing. All right, the Mets have 3 hits. For some reason, I thought they were being no-hit in that game. Washington over Toronto 3-2. You've got Cleveland. Cleveland lost to Minnesota 8-7. So you hit the over on that one. Yankees and the Red Sox at 7:05. You got the Phillies and the Diamondbacks at 9:40. If you're interested in that, if you're following the AL, Tampa against Baltimore. I told you Baltimore was going to lose 100 games this year. I'm getting ready to cash that sucker. Right now they're 38-80. They are, without a doubt, one of the worst teams in baseball, along with the Diamondbacks. If you're a Phils fan, you got to have it tonight. Tomorrow, we'll take a look at the NFL preseason slate. I already see some games that I like. I see some games already that I like in the NFL. Currently, Pats are laying 1.5. Kansas City's laying 2.5 against the Cardinals. Washington is laying 4.5 against Cincinnati. Bills and Bears, Jets and Packers. So we'll dive through those games as well. How about an over and under? 37.5 in a preseason game. Unbelievable. Giants and the Browns, that'll be next week, as you guys already know, the 22nd. Actually, that'll be on Sunday. So we'll see if we can actually get an updated line on that. Pardon me. Yeah, that'll be Sunday in Cleveland for the Giants and the Browns, 49ers and Jags. And then you get a little Monday night action, Jacksonville and the Saints. All right, good stuff from Kai Carlin jumping on board as well. As I mentioned, Tyler keeping us on the air, producing the show. We'll do it again next week. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow from 4 to 6. Have a good Sports Wednesday. Be safe, be sound. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Hasta luego, with you.